everyone, it's Caroline or Miss B overseas. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate you so much. I don't necessarily know exactly what I'm going to title this video just yet. It's gonna be something to the effect of like books that feel like reading sunshine or sunshiny book recommendations. And I know that staple videos here on Booktube, at least as far as recommendation videos go, are seasonal book recommendations or emotions-based book recommendations. And I wanted to add a quick clarifier or caveat that if you clicked on this video hoping for a list of super like light and fluffy reads or books that are happy the whole way through, it's nothing against those books. They're just not the type of books that I tend to gravitate towards and pick up. What I mean by books that feel like reading sunshine is that every single book on this list that I'm going to recommend to you just gave me an overwhelming sense of warmth, and the writing or the story itself has a vibrancy and is very bright and dazzling in some way, and just gave me the overwhelming feeling or the equivalent feeling of like stepping out into the sun after having been somewhere that is very dark and maybe cold. Now that I've added that clarification and we all know why we're here and we all know what to expect, I really hope that you'll stick around because I do think that there's something for everyone in this list. But I'm gonna go ahead and start out with the first book that feels like reading sunshine, which is I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson. And I couldn't not start out with this book just because it has sun in the title, but this is a young adult contemporary. It alternates between the two perspectives of these twins named Noah and Jude. And it's interesting because in alternating between their two perspectives, there's also a jump in time. So Jude's perspective is told in like the present time of the book, whereas Noah, the brother, his perspective takes place 3 years earlier. So in those two dual perspectives, you can really see how their relationship has shifted. Jandy Nelson's writing is just pure magic. I always recommend this as a book for artists. Noah and Jude, the two main characters, are very artistic and they have kind of different mediums that they prefer. And the way that Jandy Nelson kind of writes their creative and artistic process is so unique. For example, Noah, whenever he gets an idea in his head for like a new drawing or a new portrait that he wants to create, Jandy Nelson will use these kind of parentheticals that show kind of what he would title his creation. For example, here's one: self-portrait, I'm standing on my own head. Portrait, self-portrait, the boy who watched the boy hypnotize the world. And there's just something overwhelmingly vibrant and colorful about the way that Jandy Nelson depicts the love of family. Just vibrant. That's the word that I would assign to the characters, this writing, the themes in this: vibrant. Sun is really coming through right now with my sunshiny book recommendations. I don't know how cool it's gonna look in the video itself, but right now in the viewfinder, I'm really digging how the sun is helping me out. This next book, I couldn't not include it when I was thinking of books that feel like reading sunshine, and I'm sure you'll agree as soon as you see it. It's The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. If you do not know somehow what this is about already, it focuses on this island where there's this orphanage, and this orphanage is home to several children that have magical capabilities. And there's this kind of caretaker of the orphanage, and then our main character Linus is almost like a social worker who at the very beginning is sent to this orphanage to make sure that everything is okay and the children are being well cared for. You know how people will describe books as being like love letters to things? So like, this book is a love letter to New York, or this is a love letter to writing. This is TJ Klune's love letter to the extraordinariness of everyday magic and senses of wonder. In this story, TJ Klune just does a fantastic job of reminding the reader that of course course, magic exists in this world, and even if it doesn't look like magic wands or, you know, super spell casting capabilities, love and acceptance is the most powerful form of magic. That's the only way I can think to describe the journey that Linus goes on with themes like that, and with just the absolute love that these children have for one another and grow to love for Linus. I couldn't not recommend this as a book that will just make you feel like you're reading sunshine. And that isn't to say that there isn't times in here where you're probably going to be crying, because there's some very emotional parts, but ultimately it's just such a bright and warm read. Next up, we have a book that whenever I pitch it, I literally pitch it as sunshine in book form, which is You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. This is a young adult contemporary that takes the typical like prom story and just turns every single trope that goes along with that on its head. The main character's name is Liz Leidy, and at the very beginning she loses out on this scholarship that she was really relying on, and so to kind of combat that, she decides to go out and try to win the title of prom queen, because that comes with a certain amount of scholarship money. And in making this decision, Liz faces and learns a lot of different things. She faces a lot of prejudice from this decision, being Black and openly queer in a predominantly white high school and predominantly white community. Then also in making this decision, she meets this other girl that is also trying to win the title of prom queen, and they may or may not develop a romance. And also in her decision to try and win the title of prom queen, she kind of gets reunited with an old friend of hers. They haven't spoken in a really long time. His name is Jordan, and he is going out for prom king. So Leah Johnson creates this, I'm calling it a new trope, and it's like friends to enemies to friends again, and their relationship is just so overwhelmingly positive and warm. Jordan Jennings as a character is just like sunshine in character form, and I just appreciated this book so much and what Leah Johnson did in writing messages that are so real and so necessary, but then also just writing this overwhelmingly lovely sunshiny story. My next sunshiny book is also a young adult contemporary, and that is Felix Ever After by Kacen Callendar, and this focuses on our main character Felix Love, who is going through a lot at the very beginning of the book. He's never been in love before, never had a long-term relationship, so he's really looking for that. He also has a very strained relationship with his father, and then a non-existent relationship with his mother, and this is largely in part because Felix is a trans boy, so he's grappling with how to communicate. And then there's also an incident at the very beginning of the book in which photos of Felix are publicly displayed pre-transition, and he is dead named both on social media and then in like a public platform way. And I just always appreciate Kacen Callendar so much for being able to create these stories that are so important in regards to discussions of identity, but then at the same time Callendar also creates just this group of messy teenage characters. Felix himself is also very messy. He makes kind of a bunch of wrong decisions, but this friend group is so vibrant. This is also, I would say, a book that I would recommend to artists. Felix is an artist, and so is his friend group. The whole story kind of takes place during the summertime in, I think, Brooklyn, which is a very sunshiny setting, and they're all kind of in this art institute, so that gets worked into the plot as well. Okay, I feel like I couldn't get through this list without recommending some kind of whimsical middle grade, and if I were to do like a seasonal book recommendation, this book I think would more trend towards winter or fall, just because it's so cozy, but it's also very sunshiny. This book is Pages&Co, which I think is the first book in the Bookwanderers series from Anna James. I always mix up the title of the series and then the title of the first book. But regardless, this story focuses on our main character, Tilly, who lives with her grandparents, and they own this perfectly wonderful and magical bookshop, and Tilly discovers throughout this plot that she has this magical capability called book wandering, which allows her to not only bring her favorite characters to life and literally off the page, but it also allows her to travel into her favorite stories and her favorite settings and interact with those characters in the book. This is a story that holds such a special place in my heart just because it's overwhelmingly reading positive. The message of this book is read what makes you happy, read whenever you can, however you can, as long as you are remembering and experiencing the absolute magic of what it means to be in a story. So I mean, how could you interpret a book with a message like that as anything but absolutely warm and absolutely dazzling and magical? Okay, next up we have two books that I'm going to recommend together, I think. The first one is Wild Blue Wonder by Carlie Sorosiak, and the second one is The Names They Gave Us by Emery. Both of these I'm recommending for kind of the same reasons. They both have summer camp settings. This one, the present timeline takes place in the winter, but like the main character lives near the summer camp property, and then there's also flashbacks to summertime when the camp is in session. This one, the entirety of the story takes place during the summer when the summer camp is in session. And both of these books are kind of the reason that I put the disclaimer or the caveat in at the beginning, because both of these books deal heavily with grief, so they're not happy throughout. In fact, they're quite tumultuous and emotional. But while both of them very heavily kind of show the main character's journey through their grief, they also show the main character's journey through healing, what it means to kind of rely and lean on other people in your life in order to heal, and the things that you can learn about people even after they're gone. So both of them have these vibrant summer camp settings, but then also these overwhelmingly light and vibrant themes of overcoming grief and the strength and the power that you can find in healing. Next, we have a book that just exudes warmth. It feels like being wrapped in a hug of a friend that you haven't seen in a really long time. Like, you know that feeling? That's the feeling that I got when I finished this book. I remember distinctly where I was when I finished it, and I did like the cliche thing where I closed the book and then I just hugged it to my chest. And that book is none other than With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. This is another young adult contemporary. Our main character's name is Imani, who is a teenage mom in her senior year of high school. Imani has a huge passion for cooking, but she's never really been able to explore that beyond just a hobby. So long, she's tried to be the perfect mother. She's tried to be a good granddaughter. She's tried to be a good friend. She's tried to be a good student, because she knows that she's facing extreme judgment and extreme pressure as a teenage mother. And in trying to juggle all of those things, she's gotten to her senior year and realized that she's never really focused on herself. I love and appreciate Elizabeth Acevedo so much for writing a story with a main character who went through a teenage pregnancy, and she did not make the story overly tragic or overly traumatic. I just think we've seen that narrative written in YA and it gets kind of tired, and the fact of the matter is teenage pregnancy shouldn't be something that is traumatic and shouldn't be something that is tragic. It's Elizabeth Acevedo, so you know every single relationship in here is written so beautifully, whether it's like romantic or if it's a platonic friendship relationship or it's a familial relationship. Acevedo just writes those so beautifully, and every single time Imani steps into a kitchen, I couldn't help but grin from ear to ear. So if you want a book that will light you up and warm you up from the inside out, I highly recommend With the Fire on High. And my last book that I have for you is not one story, but several stories for all of you anthology fans out there. It's Flying Lessons and Other Stories. This is from the We Need Diverse Books publishing conglomerate. I don't know what to call it. It's edited by Ellen O, but there's so many different authors within here. All of these stories don't necessarily have anything in common. They're written, I would say, for the middle grade age range, and they all try to promote and amplify either voices from diverse authors or diverse characters and diverse perspectives. It takes all these things and puts them into these stories that makes it accessible for the middle grade age range. But I also would recommend this to adults. Sometimes I think we as adults can overcomplicate things. Maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I think that we all have things that we can learn from the middle grade age range. And that concludes all of my recommendations for books that feel like reading sunshine. I hope that you found something that interests you. I hope that if you pick up any of these titles, they make you feel warm, they make you feel vibrant, they make you feel dazzling and bright. If you have any books that you think that you would add to this list, please let me know, because I never don't want to read a book that makes me feel like sunshine. And I appreciate you all so much for watching, and I hope that you're having a fantastic day, and I will see you again very, very soon. Goodbye.